Hiya and welcome to the Moaning Show episode 6 with me, HCD Rules 0001. And this week I'd like to talk to you about cost, or money, so to speak. It's no secret that a heck of a lot of people struggle to cope with the current cost of living. It's all to do with inflation and problems on the other side of the world. There's a heck of a lot of problems with Greece and possibly Italy in the news. I'm sure you've seen it. But I'm going to talk about, obviously, the UK and its very own problems. I've done a little bit of research and I will be looking down to my pad as I'm doing now for inspiration and the so-called way to go forward. Now, this is an answer of a request from a viewer, and I'll get her question out straight away and I'll continue the video in due course. So the cost of eating out was her requested subject, but I'm going to add that to the cost of living. And doing the little bit of research that I have done, the average cost of a course of a meal in a restaurant or in a pub or in a bar, wherever, is £6.78. Now, this time last year I went to Cardiff and I had a budget to spend on what I wanted. It was a very nice experience because it was the first time I was set free, so to speak, to do things I wanted to do. And the first night I was there, I spent unwillingly, because we just wanted to sit down and eat something. We'd been walking around for 3 or 4 hours after we arrived, and we got a little bit lost and eventually found our way back to the city. But I spent 10%, or a little bit over 10% of my actual budget on one meal and drinks, obviously, which I thought was a bit expensive. As you can tell from what I'm wearing, I don't have the luxury of being able to wear a Nike tracksuit or a Nike top with a pair of Adidas jeans, or, if you get my meaning, A, I'm not the size for these things, and B, I'm certainly not wealthy enough to be seen in high branded gear. I don't think a lot of people are, to be honest. But what I will say is that is a heck of a increase in what you would normally spend. Say, like, during the week you go out, you buy a couple of loaves of bread to get you through the week, and you buy your fillings for sandwiches. So, like, you buy a multi-bag of crisps, and just you buy these things to get you through the week. You know, we need to eat. It's as simple as that. But with the research I did, I found a price increase of eating out as 7.5% per meal. You know, as I say, £6.78 is the average cost of a meal, and it is just ridiculous. I mean, you say, like, if you just want a quick bite to eat, or a sandwich, or, as I did back this time last year, I had a burger and fries. That was it. Burger and fries, and with about two, maybe even 3 Cokes, was over 20 quid. It was absolutely ridiculous. And it's all part of the cost of living, and it is scary. It is really scary. I'm 27 and I've lived with my parents all my life. I haven't ventured out hardly. As I just mentioned, the trip to Cardiff this time last year was a nice experience. It was the first time without my family properly for a couple of days. But the thing that scares me the most is the future at the moment. It's not good for a person that has got no plans. Ever since I can remember, I was asked, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I never had an answer back then. And to be brutally honest with you, I still don't have an answer. It's not that I don't have ambition, it's the fact I don't have a ambition. You know, I don't know what my dream job is. But the scary thing about the cost of living is the fact that it's getting more expensive each and every year. I mean, obviously you've got to expect an increase in certain things, but how can someone who, like myself, is overprotected as a youngster growing up? I distinctly remember, changing the subject a little bit, when I was 9 years old or 10 years old, back in Surrey, where I used to come from, I went to the local shops, and you see kids going to the local shops about age 3 or 4, maybe 5 or 6 these days. But that's how overprotected I was. I didn't go anywhere by myself until I was 10, 11. But how can someone, even someone who's got a part-time or a full-time job that's my age, how can we be confident about our futures when prices just increase all the time? Going back to the trip in Cardiff, I remember the day after this 10% meal, as I want to call it, when we wanted something to eat, we went to Greg's the day after, and it was, we spent £2 or £3. It's a heck of a lot better, but still very expensive if you think about it. Because let's be honest about it, the cost of living is technically throwing money down the drain. When you spend money in any form, 90% of the money that you spend is all on, say, perishables or things you can't see. For instance, bills. We all have to pay bills. We have to pay gas, electric, blah 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 blah. We have to pay water. Water bills. Why do we pay for water? Companies seem to, pardon my French, piss money up the wall that we pay for, especially water bills. I know these companies, ever since the utility bills in general were made nationalised, as the term seems to be, these companies are in it for profit. But how can, obviously there is a definite practice for these, high executives in these companies, so like Eon, Npower, EDF Energy, places like that. These company directors are sleeping in their beds. They go to work once, maybe twice a week in meetings, and they live the life of right. and it is simply not fair. I do apologise if there was a pause there. You know, it's just not fair. But they say life isn't fair. There's these guys that are just living an easy life with everything most people want, and it's because these companies are set up for profit. If they weren't set up for profit, in other words, if there was a utility company that was set up, maybe this is my dream job. If there was a utility company that was set up and it was for the people rather than for profit, then this world would be a better place. This country would be a better place. For instance, the little bit of research that I did do, dual fuel tariffs are 31% more expensive than they were 2 years ago in 2009. 31%. Now, how in all that is fair, how in all that is just, can that be allowed to happen? How can a price increase in utility bills, I'm talking mainly gas and electric here, how in all that is holy can a price increase of 31% in 2 years, so we're talking 15% a year, how is that allowed? How is that allowed by our so-called protectors, our governments, our police? You know, how is it allowed? Person A goes to work 40 hours a week. Person A earns £11,000 to £15,000 a year. Person A has to spend 15% more of person A's wages to have exactly what he had this time last year. How is that fair? Which basically means person A has to budget person A's living. So for instance, if person A had a monthly subscription to a magazine and throughout the year that costs 15 quid a year, or say, I don't know, because of these price increases, person A has to give up that subscription. We have to give up things that we want or need just so that we can pay the electricity bill or the gas bill. That's not fair. How is that fair? And the so-called help that these utility companies offer for low wages, low wage earners in fact, it's pathetic. They still want the money out of you. I used to work for one of these companies. But it's not just utility bills. It's, as you can see, I'm indoors. I live under a roof. Unfortunately, because of Mum's disability, we don't pay rent at the moment, but you know, she's not going to be here forever. Rent, you know, 90% of people, I wouldn't say, I'll tell a lie, it's probably not 90%. Those people that can't afford to buy their homes have to pay rent. It's as simple as that. And again, going back to the pad here, the average rental property is £876 per calendar month. Now going back to person A, who earns say £11,000 to £15,000 a year. Now let's go to a relative of person A, person B. Person B has 2 kids. They are a single parent and they work part-time because they have to look after their kids after school. And person B, excuse me for a second. Person B earns less than £10,000 a year. And person B's rent is £500 plus per calendar month. And person B's bring home from person B's job is less than £1,000 a month. So already half the budget per month has gone on rent. As I say, with the increase in utility bills and the increase in the cost of grocery shopping, you know, food, perishables. If person B also has a car to take their children to school, person B, you know, after bills, rent, and, you know, feeding the kids or whatever, or filling up the car with petrol, person B will probably have less than £100 to do what they can with. You know, say like if there's any other problems that need sorting out, it's really, really bad. And, you know, governments of the world are supposed to be helping people. I can't see any help coming. The average wage in 2010, according to the notes that I've written, was £26,470. Now, I currently live in the southwest of England, and we have the second highest cost of living after London, capital, and we have the second lowest wages in the country. The average wage around here, I would suggest, would be less than £10,000 for the average Joe. And how people are supposed to survive on less than £10,000 a year. You know, a lot of people would say, well, why didn't you listen at school, or why don't you get a better job? These, you know, people are, for want of a better term, working their asses off 40 hours a week, and they're earning fuck all. They are earning literally fuck all. And it goes back to the work side of things. You know, it's like, well, why should we? If you have to work, you have to work. You know, you got to pay the bills, but what if bills didn't exist? Would we work? It's a very good question, I think. And then we go back to the supposed help that this country gives to its people, specifically people on benefits. Now, I live in a benefits reliant household. I don't work, and in the past, say 2 years or so, a lot of that's been through choice. I made a mistake at my previous job. That's all I want to say about it. But the people that are on benefits falling into, I wouldn't say devastation, but they're falling into the bracket of people that can barely afford to keep themselves alive. And this is where I don't necessarily fear for my future, but I'm not looking forward to it. Price increases will continue. There's no doubt about it. For instance, petrol, 20% in the last 12 months. 20%. You know, increased add to the increase in all sorts of other bills, as I say, utility bills, rent, the increase in the cost of food, clothing, all sorts of materials, things we need on a day-to-day basis. They're getting more expensive. And yes, minimum wages are increasing every year. They have to. I mean, can you imagine if the national minimum wage didn't increase? People just wouldn't work. They can't afford to work through not working, if you see what I mean. It's scary. My dad is my mum's personal carer. He looks after her 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, apart from the few hours that she's at dialysis. And for the work he does, he gets paid, I don't know, between £40 and £65 a week. You're doing a 24/7 job and you're getting paid less than 24 hours, in my opinion, for it. It's complete and total bullshit. While these bankers and chief executives of organisations write themselves a nice bonus, sometimes a 6-figure bonus, there's people like my dad and people my age and younger, say they go to school, and immediately when they get home from school they have to care for a loved one, and they get a pittance for what they do. It's absolutely ridiculous. Terrorists and criminals get better treatment. You go into, I've seen footage of prisons and things like that, and the inmates are playing on Xbox 360s and PlayStation 3s. They're watching TV. They're getting better treatment. They get paid money for, I don't know, making number plates or making, or whatever. They're getting paid whilst in prison. They've got a roof over their heads. They don't have to worry about paying rent. They've got a roof. They don't pay rent. Terrorists, Abu Hamza, the guy with the hook, he's got better treatment than, in my opinion, than my family is at the moment. I seem to remember him earning £40,000 through some sort of treatment thing a couple of years ago. £40,000. And here's my dad doing, let's face it, work, looking after my mum 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and he's earning less than £100 a week. It's fucking bullshit. And if you don't like my language, then I'm sorry, but it really is bullcrap. And the future's not looking good for Greece and Italy. If they fall, then Europe falls, I reckon, especially if another country falls after that. There is a heck of a lot of animosity rising. There appears to be another recession on the horizon, which will make people worry again. There'll be less jobs, more people looking for those few jobs, and the overall future for the country in the immediate future is not looking brilliant at all. It's another reason to not be motivated. It's another reason to be concerned about the future, because if costs rise, then so do companies' reasons for downsizing, for getting rid of X number of employees per location. I don't really have a lot more to say on the subject other than the cost of living is equal to how the world is. Just because a few bad decisions a couple of years ago by some prick in America who's, I don't know, scratching his arse or biting the top of his pen or something like that, just because of a bad decision by a few arseholes like him a couple of years ago in America, just because of those decisions, the rest of the world is paying for those bad decisions made. And unless you're a chief executive of a company or high up in a company, you're in trouble. I can't stress enough how this cost of living is a worry for not only myself but for billions all over the world, but it's something we've all got to put up with. It's something that needs to basically be addressed all over the world. This is my thoughts on the subject. The little bit of research I have done has not exactly frightened me, but there is slight concerns. I mean, the increase in prices seems to be all across the board. I can't think of one thing that's actually gotten cheaper over the last year. But hey ho, that's life. These things are meant to test us. That's about all I can think of. So this is HUD Rules 0001 signing off.